Sup, Alana?
I am so happy to see you. You can see a little tail
Why
coming through here.
is there? It's like a shark. It's like a shark
Near,
fin,
near, near, near.
but in the shape. For those of you guys who are watching on YouTube, you just saw something go across the screen.
That's
So
Sweet Muffin.
sweet. That's the cat's name. Sweet
Yeah.
Muffin.
Well, Muffin, and
Okay.
she's sweet. She's
Okay.
sweet. Here
Sweet
she is
Muffin.
again, right there.
Oh my gosh, look at that. We have a Bernie, a dog, and if you
Oh,
want him, you can have him.
oh no, no. One cat's enough plus two dogs now. So it's a big family.
You
I moved
know,
in.
you moved
Larry,
in.
Larry, I moved in.
All right, well, let's hear it. I want to hear the update. It's been, my gosh, I don't even know how long it's been since you've been on the podcast. I'm going to have to like Google it real quick. I think it's
Mm.
been at least, I know at least a year.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so within the last year, like I met him 8 months ago. So I'm in love. I'm in love. I'm in
Really?
love.
So tell me what's going on here.
Yeah, his name is Scott. I remember I was living in Wyoming, probably the last time we spoke,
Yes.
and I moved out to North Carolina to stay at my girlfriend's place. That's where my intuition was calling to me. And then my clients, of all things, they make us walk our talk. It so sucks. So she's like, okay, well, now you have to go on Match.com. I'm like, no, I just shut down my companies. I don't know where I'm living. I'm living at my girlfriend's house in North Carolina. This is not the time to date. She goes, oh, yes, it is. This is you in your vulnerable power. I dare you. I'm like, fine. First one I met.
Look at
I
that.
dated some others just to be sure he was the one.
Just to,
But
yeah.
this is such a testament to the work works. Trying to put sprinkles on top of the ice cream cone of shit and expect it to work.
Yeah, that
Doesn't.
doesn't taste good,
Doesn't taste good, nor does it smell good.
No, not that I've tried it. But my home with 4 boys has smelled like that a lot.
I am sure.
So,
And a
it's,
dog.
oh man, it's crazy. So, well,
Poor Jess.
congratulations.
How does
That's
Jess
awesome.
do it?
I don't know. I don't know how she does it. I think she's trying to figure that out. Like anytime somebody asks her that, they're like, how do you do it? And they're like, she's like, I don't know, but if you ever figure it out, let me know. Will you? Like that's usually her response. But you know what? It's, we embrace the chaos here. It's not, it's definitely, it's far from perfect. It's chaos. It's mayhem. We were actually sitting at dinner just at our dining room table, and the boys were done eating and she and I were just sitting there talking, and it was amazing because like through our conversation, we were talking about something and we were like totally into the conversation. And for a minute I was like, I kind of like looked around and I was like, and then we have my 16-year-old and my 10-year-old trying to fight each other, giving each other wedgies, and they're like trying to pick each other up, and that they're screaming, and then my oldest is chasing the 8-year-old around, like the dog is chasing them, like the dog is like literally going around like doing these zoomies because he's still a puppy, and he's like jumping up on the couch and doing all this stuff. And it is like, and I was like, stop for a second. I was like, how is it that we can somehow zone this stuff out, or like, we're just here and we're talking, and we just sort of, I think you and I are both aligned here that this is just what we're used to, maybe.
Yeah. Oh,
I don't know. And she's like, yeah, I think so, because like I find it creepy and eerie when the house is actually quiet. Like that freaks me out actually more. So.
And then you do those moments where you show them renewing your vows.
Yeah.
Like, you two are my heroes.
Oh, you're so kind. Yeah, we do try to show the boys. Oh my God, do you want to hear something funny? And oh my God, if I knew that this was going to come out, I would have brought it to you. So, we get an email from my 8-year-old's teacher, and she very lighthearted email. She's like, "Hey, I'm just reaching out because Colton drew a really interesting drawing of you and your husband, and he's going to bring it home today." And she's like, "I just want to let you know, like, there's obviously a lot of love between you two." And and Jessica forwards me the email, and this is before we saw the drawing. She's like, "Look at this."
He caught you in the closet.
No, right. That's, it doesn't look like it's far from that. But like, so anyway, Jessica forwards me this email, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see this. Like, I figured it was just like, like a huddle, like we're all hugging or whatever. like Allana, it literally looks like thank God he drew us standing up, but it literally looks like I'm like on top of her, like in the missionary position. I was like, oh my God. I was like, Colton, I was like, I was like, what is this? And he's like, oh, it's when you pick mom up and she puts her legs around you and you just like pick her up to kiss her, like in the kitchen. And I'm like, okay, cool. Because it definitely, I was like, wow, man, this is, yeah. And, but I do that to her a lot. Like I'll pick her up in the kitchen and like kiss her and stuff like that for the boys. But yeah, that's what he drew. That's what he drew.
It's like,
Yes. It caused,
like Sanskrit tantra poses of
right.
sex.
It caused some chatter, I think, amongst the second grade teachers of.
But thank goodness, right? Heaven forbid you get in trouble for loving your wife too much.
I know, right?
Right? So, it's a wonderful problem to have.
It is, yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. You know, you inspired a renewing of vows at my last intimacy retreat in Costa Rica.
Whoa.
You're in the back of my head. Yeah.
Tell me about this.
Well, you know how I do an intimacy retreat once a year? This client, the woman had been working with me for we've known each other for a good 15, 20 years. I was at their wedding actually, but she started working with me about 5 years ago, and he would come to the retreats, but he wouldn't do the work. And the drinking kept happening. And it got to the point where she said, I love you. And you're going to need to choose between the drinking and the family. And so it wasn't what's that?
How long ago was this?
This was about a year ago.
Okay.
And they have 2 boys, I think about 9 and 11. And it was getting to the point where you can't hide it anymore. And so he said, okay, he calls me Sister Allana. Sister Allana, it's time to do the work. And we ended up doing the psychedelic somatic integration work that I've been doing, in addition to private coaching, group coaching, and the retreat. And what we discovered, I always had this sense, Larry, that the drinking was the effect of the cause. That's what I do in this deep intimacy work all the time. It's an emotional wound that has not been healed. And so when we got into our first weekend, our psychedelic somatic weekend, he was at a place where he didn't know why he was here. What's the point of living? Going through the motions. Very successful man, loves his wife, loves his kids, but he couldn't find that reason to be here. And when we went into the first weekend with the medicine, we got to the place where he was 10 years old and his mom was dying of cancer, but she lived. Then he was 15 and she got another bout of cancer. She was going to die, but she lived. And then he was 18 and she died. And not his conscious mind. That's just the little tip of the iceberg, right? 5% of what we know is our beliefs, our thoughts, our conscious mind. Underneath the water, the iceberg, the subconscious, was convinced he failed his mother and didn't deserve to live. So this is what was running the show, Larry, all the time. When he'd go out for a drink or he'd start to feel, and he would just have to like push that feeling away. So over about a 9-month period of going through this deep healing trauma work, we healed this wound. In fact, Larry, on one of the journeys, they wear like a mask, and it's all about staying in the body, not leaving, to have this oneness with spirit, which is amazing. No, it's brave work. You stay in the body and you feel through trauma until you have peace and home in your body. And so we were on day 2 and his knees were bent and his knees started rocking back and forth. And I'm always tracking them. Every breath, every emotion, every body sensation. I'm like right there to help their autonomic nervous system get all the way home. But he was looking really good. I said, what's going on? He's like, my mom's here. Her spirit's here. It wasn't my fault. I can forgive myself. Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really cool. It's, so I didn't even know you did that. I didn't know you did the psychedelic thing, and I don't have anything against that. I don't know if I'd ever do it. It freaks me out a little bit, to be honest with you. Like but people who have done it, like I know that they rave about it. But it freaks me out a little bit because of like the unknown, I think, of like, what is this going to bring up? Or is this like even legit? Like, does it actually work? Like I've always had those questions in my mind, but I don't know what I don't know. I haven't even done really research on it to see. But I do know a couple people who that you and I both know actually, that have gone through that to overcome horrific trauma.
Correct.
And the person that I'm referring to, that you know as well, he came out of going through a guided retreat like that and felt a complete renewal.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? I was like, and I had 1,000 questions for him. I was like, does that really work? I was like, what if it backfires? Like, what if you're in there and like all of a sudden all hell breaks loose, like, or something? And he's like, oh, it's not really like that. And he's like, you should try it. He's like, you've had trauma from a kid. And I'm like, dude, and again, I don't know what I don't know, but I'm always like, I'm so afraid to open up something like that, because I feel like the mind is it's delicate and it's fragile. And there's a part of me that has tremendous fear and apprehension around doing that, because I'm like, what if I dive into something that I'm like, oh man, I really wish I wouldn't have thought about that or confronted that or dealt with. I don't know what I'm even trying to say, but other than I was just super apprehensive about it.
Well, I totally acknowledge your fear. Everyone's afraid of the unknown. I don't know one person that's like, yay, uncertainty, bring it, unknown,
Right.
bring it. Right. So, but what we want to maybe first address is that what you resist persists. And any man or woman, but who is going to allow the unknown to be bigger than them, is going to always live in fear, manipulation, strategy, coping, close their heart, got to be 3 steps ahead. Like, you'll never actually be completely present unless you know that the unknown is the divine. The unknown is the divine, and the divine is in, as, and through us all. And what's blocking that are our traumas and our fears and unresolved wounds from the past. So this is not a walk in the park. This is not for the faint of heart. And this is why I do one-on-one work with medicine. I am not into journey work, because I do believe it can go awry. But I am with my clients 100%. And here's another piece that I never knew as well. We have quite an over-reliance on mindset and trying to be in control with the mind. But the mind is like, 3 to 5%, the conscious mind? The subconscious, what's held in the body, is the majority of what screws us up. It's literally a vibration, and it will attract professional or personal situations based on that frequency. And so when you get into this form, I can give you links to this. It's Psychedelic Somatic Institute. It's where I was trained, where I went through all of this work myself.
So you trained in this too?
Personally, yeah. I've gone.
I didn't know that. Okay.
I've gone. Yeah, we haven't been. I guess maybe it's been maybe more like 2 years. I don't know, since I've been on the podcast.
It's been since 2021. I just looked.
Okay, there it is.
Oh my God, it's been that long.
Yeah, that's what I've been up to. It's been life-changing for me. And so back to the story of this gentleman, consciously, he had no idea this was what was running the show, but you can see in his behaviors that the drinking was consistent. It could be a drinking addiction, a sex addiction, a porn addiction, a work addiction. So by the end, he was able to have his autonomic nervous system, it's called, come back to zero. What happens when we don't resolve a trauma is our subconscious is nonstop hypervigilantly looping, trying to make sure we don't get hurt again. Where's the next abusive situation that I can survive? Not consciously, subconsciously, but subconsciously, we're literally vibrationally attracting it into our life. And so it is intense. And what you do is you trust the body, not the mind. You trust the body, not the heart. You trust the body, not the soul. You trust the body to be the vehicle through which the divine brings the autonomic nervous system back to zero. How? Through feeling emotions and feeling body sensations and taking and following them through the body. It's intense. But when you get back to zero, there is a sense of home, wholeness. Not just, oh, thank God it's over. No, you have all the wisdom. You literally have the embodiment of strength, awareness. It's almost like an alchemy that this lower vibrational energy turns into a higher vibrational energy. You have foresight. You have the ability to surrender in the face of the unknown, which feels like courage for no reason, confidence for no reason. It's epic. And so what I did with the renewing of the vows, back to the story of you and Jess, is I was at their wedding and he sang a song to his beloved and he was shit-faced. And when all this went down, and they're stronger than ever after 16 years, I'm so happy. And they came to the retreat, and I said, how about you renew those vows? And you sing that verse, bring your guitar, sing it sober, you know? And so he's like, actually, Allana, there were 3 verses, not just one. But I was so drunk, I didn't even get to the verse number 2 and 3. So he came, and we brought a little veil and a little tiara, and we staged it all. And he bought her a new gift, and he sang to her, and he renewed their vows. There wasn't a dry eye in the house, because he didn't sing just at her. He sang into her. He sang from a place of having forgiven himself and having a renewed reason to live. And I'm really proud of him, proud of all of them.
Wow. Can we talk about this as far as, I'm really, I don't know much about
my pleasure.
Subconscious trauma and the impact of that on relationships. Is it safe to say that probably almost everybody has some sort of trauma, whether and just different degrees of it, or
totally,
or some people just completely like trauma free, like
there are level 1, 2, 3, 4 trauma. Level 1 is what everybody goes through all the time. It's like mild anxiety, overwhelm, nervousness. It's sort of like the gazelle is in the field and the cheetah, like the leaves move. Is it a cheetah? It's like that. You just friggin' go to New York City. It's like that. Like it's like most of us live in level 1 trauma all the time. Level 2 trauma is when the gazelle goes, oh God, it's a cheetah. It's chasing me. It's that very short burst where you've just got to like run like hell or get through something really intense. But then you get away and the autonomic nervous system goes back to 0. Well, what if it doesn't? What if your life is dad's always hitting me? What if you're in a house where your parents are fighting all the time? What if you are in, a bad part of town and every time you ever walk to school, you've got to be on guard? What if it never ends, right? There, you could, all sorts of different ways. It doesn't have to be war in order for you to deal with this. Even being a woman, once you get to a certain age, everybody's dad looks at you weird. You can't not be on guard when you start to develop breasts and become a young woman. Like it's nonstop. Level 3 trauma is this sense of like hopelessness. Like, is this ever going to end? Will I ever be safe again? Will I ever live my dreams again? Will I ever be free to be me? Is my sexuality wrong? Are my dreams wrong? Is my expression wrong? Can I really live? It's a hopelessness, but it also can come back to 0 because every so often you get a break. Maybe you go to grandma and grandpa's house. Maybe you get a summer vacation. Something allows your autonomic nervous system to rest, to go all the way back. But what if there is no grandma's house? What if there is no summer break? You go into level 4 trauma, which is when you leave your body, you disassociate. You're just like, peace out. This is too much. And you sort of do fakey fake. When people say, how are you? Fine. But they're not there. They're not in their body. They might work a lot. They might drink a lot. They might do porn a lot. They just do something to be fake and to stay in control. And anytime they ever come back into their body to try to be present, to make love, to have those conversations with the kids, to have those intimate conversations with your beloved, they come back in the body. But the first thing they got to feel is level 3, hopelessness. What's the point? So they leave again. And that autonomic nervous system never gets home. And you do that for a decade, and you do that for another decade. You see a lot of very high-performing people that can just go and go and go with a really good attitude and a really positive mindset because that's all they can live in is that really tiny little part, the top of the iceberg, the thoughts and the beliefs and the mindset. Because if they go down into that subconscious, it gets bad fast. But they're not in their body. They're not embodied. They're not able to have God, life, the universe in, as, and through them. How do I know this? I don't know how much we've actually talked. Do you remember the relationship before this? He pleaded guilty of criminal assault. That's how bad it got. And so 3 years ago, when he was carted off and put in jail, and I went to the domestic violence shelter, I'm like, okay, Allana, you're an amazing coach. You've done every protocol under the sun. How on earth could you have attracted this horrific relationship? Well, the top of the iceberg, the little conscious mind, Allana's Ivy League grad mind certainly didn't attract this. It was the big subconscious level 4 trauma that it was time for me to deal with. And so that's when I've done ayahuasca 25 years ago. You leave, you go out to tier 3, you have oneness with all. It's extraordinary. you actually know that you are literally everything. But you come back into your body and you haven't resolved the trauma in tier 1 in the body, and you attract who I attracted. So I utilized a different form of medicine. It's got 10,000 hours of MAPS trials, and Psychedelic Somatic Institute.org. Saj Razvi, he's the head of education. I work with one of the best facilitators, and they kept me in my body. Tier 1, blindfolded, not a lot of medicine. You're not high. You're not trying to leave. You're actually just using the medicine to get out of the secondary consciousness of the mind into the primary consciousness of the body to feel the unfeelable. And what I discovered on my very first journey was all these memories came back, Larry. I had actually been molested as a kid several times, but I had left disassociated just to survive. The images, the thoughts, the smells, the sensations. You made me do this. You like this. This is your fault. All these horrific statements were all lodged in my subconscious. And through the use of the medicine and the facilitator, I was able to feel through wanting to kill myself. That's level 3, hopelessness. To level 2, a very short burst, 30 seconds, 60 seconds of intense anger, panic, rage, all the way back to level 1, nervousness, discomfort, overwhelm, back to level 0. And for the first time in my entire life, Larry, I forgave myself. That's why. I mean, you and Jess have been, together forever. I've done nothing but 1 divorce, 2 divorces, and then this last relationship. Like, what's wrong with me? There was such self-hatred and shame of why couldn't I figure this out? I finally found the reason. And I finally found the modality to heal the reason. So I went through about 1.5 years of these protocols, these psychedelic somatic integration immersions, and my autonomic nervous system is home, and I'm peaceful, and I've forgiven myself. And now I take my clients through this work, and now I finally am the vibration to attract healthy love for the first time in my 50s. So I'm so behind this work and so grateful.
That's so I didn't expect to go down this route because, like I said, this is not my expertise, and it's not anything I even know enough about to even talk about. It's really fascinating, your journey, though. Let me ask you this: is there a way that, because I think every couple out there has stories and trauma, and there might even sprinkle some hopelessness in there, and or whatever these levels are, right? I think, like you said, level 3 is hopelessness, and level 2, but there's always like something underlying, the dynamics of a relationship. And is there a way that couples, individuals can get through this without doing like psychedelics, or what, and if so, what does that look like?
100%. This particular use of psychedelics allows for us to get out of the mind that wants to figure it out, find the solution, get away from pain. Like, it just softens the mind and gets us into the body and allows us to feel what we normally have a difficult time feeling. But that doesn't mean you can't feel. I've developed 10 Allana Pratt method processes over the years. All of them help us to feel, sit in the fire, feel the feels. So if you can be with a facilitator who's like, okay, the anger's coming up, let's feel that in a healthy way, and you don't shove it down, then I can get someone's autonomic nervous system back to 0. If you can feel through sorrow and ugly cry and not blame another or abort or try to push it away, I can get your autonomic nervous system back there. If you have shame, self-hatred and loathing, and you just can't forgive yourself, but you can feel through it all the way back to 0, I can get any person or couple all the way back. And then when you bring those 2 people together who have felt through what they normally push away or project onto the other, when you can get them to integrate their own feelings in these sessions, I call them spiritual technology, quantum psychology, somatic experiential. My sessions are not like chit chat talk therapy. We feel the unfeelable. If they'll trust me and they'll surrender and they will feel, which takes a lot of vulnerability, a lot of bravery and courage and humility. But if you're willing to feel all the way back, every body is wired to get us back to 0. We just need a facilitator so that your body, with my body being present here, knows that it's safe this time. It's safe to come back in and not be disassociated. It's safe to be hopeless and not be told, oh, have a better attitude. It's going to be fine. But to go, yeah, you have every right to feel that. Take me with you. Let's feel that too. If you've got a facilitator of my capacity that will go into any shadow, any darkness, all the way home, I think I want to just kill somebody. I'm like, there's the pillow. Go for it. Smash. Like, if you are willing to feel everything, I can get everybody home. And then the couple is no longer having that energy in the space. They're both embodied, heart open, and they've even become wiser and stronger, and they respect each other more because of going through all of this. Then the connection is even more authentic, brave, beautiful, intimate. One kiss when you're in your body, felt all the way through every cell, is so much different than having left your body and doing the right thing, going through the motions, but it doesn't really touch your soul. It doesn't really enter your heart.
That's interesting. Is this why I get dizzy when me and Jessica kiss?
Maybe. I think it's just because she's so glorious, but yeah.
We joke about that all the time, because she'll be like, I get dizzy when we kiss. I'm like, I do too.
Mm.
So which is kind of cool. Well, let's get back to this. As far as what do you find that are the biggest bear traps for couples that you work with?
Mm-hmm.
And even aside from what we spent the first 20 minutes talking about, like what other bear traps do people just need to look out for?
I would say there's a new couple that just came on board, and they have had a pattern in place for decades, and they cope on top of that pattern. They have strategies based on top of that pattern. They've already decided who the other person is. They're already 3 steps ahead trying to navigate. What do I need to say so I don't piss the other one off? I don't get in trouble. I don't. The list goes on. And so we were literally having dinner with them the other evening. And after the Costa Rica retreat, they stayed and they hung out with some other people on the retreat. And she was sad because he was spending more time with them than her. And they had learned the skills in the retreat to speak up and not judge, but put it in a sandwich, more like, I love that we went to this retreat together. Thank you for taking the time, energy, and resources for our relationship. Middle of the sandwich. It hurt my heart when you spent more time with the others than me all day. End of the sandwich. Can you tell me about that? Is there some way I could be that makes it safer to be with me? Could you let me know what's going on? What else is possible? This kind of way of speaking. And she did that, as opposed to in the past, she would just get angry. She would check out. She would blame. She would tell stories, make up stories, all the things, and then get passive aggressive later. And basically what it came down to is for many years, she wouldn't play. She wouldn't engage. She wouldn't join him. She was battling Lyme disease and in bed a lot. So he kind of gave up and he went elsewhere. And that kind of wound, when you have a pattern, these bear traps, as you say, when you have an assumption and you're not in the present moment, and you're making your actions try to assuage pain or assuage rejection, you've got to be able to get in that fire and talk about it and create a new pattern. And so now, brave woman, she was able to say that. He was able to hear it without getting defensive, because they'd also learned how to sit in the fire and say, tell me more, rather than instantly defend, instantly justify, instantly blame, instantly give an excuse. Just go, thank you. Tell me more. He was able to do that. She was able to speak up. And then he said, well, I didn't want to be rejected again. And she said, I get that. And I didn't want to be so tired to not say yes and disappoint you again. So these are these moments of vulnerability where both people can tell the truth because they've both done their own inner work first. They've pattern interrupted. They've gotten out of assumption. They've bravely opened their heart. They share truth and they say, okay, what else is possible? So that's a mini example of, I think, what a lot of us do. Yeah.
Interesting. Is there a, how do I phrase this question? I see that pattern a lot, just in everybody's relationship. Especially, it seems like the longer you know somebody.
Yeah.
It's like you kind of put like this label on them of like, well, I'm going to go and talk to you, but I know you're probably going to take it this way, or you're going to do this, or you're going to respond this way.
Yeah.
So there's all these presumptions before we even have conversations, before we get really authentic and right to the heart.
Yeah.
And I think about these conversations, just people probably sit there and they're like, why does our conversation always go sideways? Why does this always turn into a fight? Like, why does this? And I'm guessing it's because one of the reasons are they just don't have those skills yet, or they haven't done their own deep work yet. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So where do people start?
Well, couples who grow together stay together. That tends, unless your sacred contract is really over, everyone who's come to me, when you start to do the work, grows, because you do have these pattern interrupts. You do learn new skills. You do get out of assumptions. You do forgive each other and forgive yourselves. You do this deeper work. So there's nothing in this space. Your questions, your intimacy questions, are a great way to start getting back into communication and listening from fresh ears, listening like you don't know who they are. Since we talked last, I've created it's called Intimate Reflections. It's a journal, and there's dyad questions, a whole beautiful, like a coffee table book, and you can open it up on date night and ask each other these questions. So being able to hear from a new point of view is essential. But what I find is, even beneath a new conversation, even beneath a pattern interrupting and asking these questions, there's always a deeper layer. There's always a deeper layer that even though, you're saying this, even though we might go on a new vacation, even though we might be going to a therapist, even though we might be going to an intimacy retreat, you're probably eventually going to, and there it is, that place where you gave up on full transparency, full vulnerability, full courage. There's just a little bit of closure. If we can, those conversations are great. Those actions are great. Doing the work is great. But if we can get all the way to that little place, and here's the big piece, it's not about them. Yes, they were the catalyst. They were the reason why you closed your heart. They were the reason why you gave up on love. They were the reason why you thought your sexuality was too much. There was a reason. But they were just a trigger. And if you could take on the point of view that they are my master spiritual teacher, to be a catalyst of where I take full ownership, shut my heart, went into my head. What can I do to sit in that fire and forgive myself, become braver, love my sexuality, love my exuberance, whatever it is? They are the gift for me to go deeper. Then you start to see your partner literally as the catalyst for your soul's greatest evolution. You no longer blame them. You thank them. They were the key. Although getting into that lock hurt, annoyed you, they were the key to get into that lock and set you free to be even more embodied in your soul. So I think that really takes guidance. I think that takes working with a coach, being in a program like yours, being in a program like mine. Like, who's got the bumper cars, like the railings here? Because you're going to be feeling things you would rather not feel. But I think this is a big misunderstanding in life. Oh, I don't want to feel that. Let's just get back to happy. No, what if that's fake after a while? What if feeling through pain gets you through to power? What if feeling through betrayal gets you to forgiveness? What if feeling through shame gets you through to confident expression? What if feeling through sadness gets you through to compassion? It does, if you feel it all the way. But if you don't feel it all the way, it turns into this wound and excuses and all these dynamics and blame, and you never have the intimacy that I believe every soul craves. So if you know that feeling through difficult feelings always makes you stronger, always will make you closer, and that you've got someone that will help you, it makes you fearless, as we said a few moments ago, of this unknown. It makes you fearless of the unknown, because no matter what I get through, I'm always better. We're always stronger. And to me, I love to imagine that I'm making love with the divine. Like, there's nothing in the way. I don't need to wait around for having sex to feel open, grateful, and literally this flow of life in my body. That's all of our birthright, to be that alive.
What do you think people are operating at as far as just run of the mill? Like, if you're operating like right now, let's just say you're operating at a level 100 right now with everything you've gone through, your training and that kind of thing. What do most couples, what do most people operate at?
Well, most people in my world who do my work have already done enough work that if we did it out of 100, I think they're operating over 50. They've done enough work and they're bumping up against something. I've tried, I've read this book, I've listened to this podcast, I've gone to this workshop, but I'm still bumping up. So they're well over 50, 70, 80. People that have not done the work and they're stuck in the victim, blame, life's against me, if only my partner changed, definitely below 50, because they haven't taken ownership. They're only looking at their circumstances to control their life. They don't feel they've got the chariot reins of their own chariot themselves. So they're still victims. So I'd say unconscious victims would be under 50. And people that have done the work and starting to get some results, but they're still bumping up against a ceiling, would be well over 50. And I'm not a beginner coach. I do have beginner programs. I do have intro programs. I do have 7-week programs. But people that once they get into my coaching world, they're rolling up their sleeves. They're willing to take full ownership. They've burned the bridge behind them. They're all in, and they know they're on the planet to experience it all. They know they're on the planet to savor this level of intimacy and self-love, and be that example of love for their kids.
What do you think? What do you think the trauma is to kids when they don't see a loving mom and dad towards each other? Like, we're always so, and here's the reason I ask that.
Yeah.
We're always so focused on kids as parents. Like, we want to be the best mom and dad ever, right? And a lot of times these kids, like, our kids will take the front burner, right? And don't get me wrong, they're super important. But I don't think that we're serving them at the highest level if they are always number one and they never get to see a loving mom and dad towards each other. Because where else are they going to learn relationship skills, dynamics, and how you truly intentionally love the other person, respect, admire, appreciate, all of these things, versus just a lot of us kind of coexist.
I so love you for asking this question. This is such an important question, because every single client I have, where did they learn all these traumas from? Where did they learn to keep their heart closed and not trust? It was their parents who didn't do the work. Not to blame parents. All parents, we do our best. But like, it's always a wound that happened back in childhood. Always, 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 always. So I believe it's so, so vitally important to be able to show our kids the whole cycle from disassociation. We all do it. It's a survival mechanism. But to show what it's like, okay, we're all checking out. I'm not present. Mom's not present. Dad's not present. Okay, let's come back in and show them what it is to feel feelings. Feelings aren't bad or wrong, or to be, that they might be scary, but this is how we become brave. And to show them healthy ways to integrate anger, healthy ways to integrate sadness, healthy ways that we all have feelings of what's wrong with us, shame, bullying kids at school, like help them feel and get them all the way back to zero. My experience with talking to some of the kids of my clients' parents, they knew all along mom and dad weren't happy. They were afraid, walking on eggshells all the time. They were like, you say X, but I can feel Y. I don't believe you. So clearly my trust mechanism of myself must be off. So they grow up not being able to trust themselves, because you say you're fine, but you're really not. So if I can't trust myself, how can I trust life? And they learn to be fake and not to rock the boat. So then they go into school and they go into relationships like that. I think it messes our kids up to not slow down and be real. My ex-husband, when we raised our son, he really disagreed with me. And I would always share what was really going on. Maybe too much. He shared nothing. Maybe not enough. Maybe there was something in the middle that would have been better had we been able to get along. But I really, really believe the best gift we can give our kids, not just behaviorally, but energetically, is to show them what it takes to be a human, feel their feelings, grow and evolve through courage and humility, and stay in your body. It's an energy. You can walk into the room and know mom and dad have been fighting. You can walk into the room and know that they just made love. And there is peace and a high vibration of coherence in that house, or there is fear and walking on eggshells in that house. And I believe it's the greatest gift we can give our kids is to be real, and to teach them what we're learning, how to integrate, so that when they go out into the world, they can sense when somebody's telling the truth or not, and they can trust themselves. I remember one of the greatest gifts I could give my son was not to be careful. That contracts him into fear, but to be aware. That expands him into knowing and discernment. I want you, when you say, do you want to get into that car? Check the energy. Does it feel light? Does it feel heavy? As you expand into your awareness, do you feel you can trust this person, or something's not lining up? Listen to your intuition. Your intuition is not in the head. Your intuition is down in the body, and you can't get down into your gut unless your heart is open. And your heart can't be open unless you can be brave in the face of anything. And these are skills that we can learn and teach our kids.
I love that. You talking about this reminds me of, and I'm speaking from like a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember being in my house when my mom was remarried to my stepdad.
Yeah.
And that was from the ages of 4 to 10. And there was this horrible feeling of uneasiness in my home. And the way I've always described it, because they were always fighting, there was always drinking, there was always like outbursts.
Yeah.
It was almost when there was peace that I always waited. It was like, how long? You know what I mean? Like, how long is this going to last? Because I know there's going to be a fight right around the corner.
Yeah.
And to compare that, I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house.
Yeah.
When I was growing up. And my grandfather was this amazing man who loved my grandmother dearly, for 53 years of marriage before he passed away in 1998. And I remember the feeling of being at their home. There was this feeling of safety.
Yeah.
There was a feeling of love. There was a feeling of certainty, and predictability.
Yep.
And I even remember like this impacted me even into my teenage years when I'm driving and even coming home from college. And there were times where I would come back home and I would sit in my driveway and I would just dread going in my home because I'm like, what am I about to walk into? Because it was always a roll of the dice. How many drinks were had and what was going on. And it was always a roll of the dice. And always, quite frankly, what personalities am I going to get when I walk into this home? Because that was unpredictable as well.
Yeah.
So I remember that feeling. And to be honest, growing up, and I think that this is a real testimony, I think, to our kids, I couldn't put that into words.
Sure.
I couldn't tell my mom that or my stepdad that. I couldn't even tell my grandfather why I liked being over there. I only know now.
Yep.
Because I can reflect back on it then.
Yep.
And know that was the feeling. And that is and sometimes we fail at it, but that's the feeling that we always try to have under this roof. And we don't always nail it, but we definitely shoot for it.
It's so beautiful. I think because you had the ability to go to grandma and grandpa's house, your autonomic nervous system had a chance to return to zero, where you knew what you knew and where you could trust yourself and where you could be discerning and where you could then build resilience to be 3 steps ahead. Okay, I'm coming home. What's going to happen here? You're an extraordinary businessman. You're 3 steps ahead on how to serve your community. You're an extraordinary father. You're 3 steps ahead on how can I plan the next outing with which son it's going to be. So you have this ability. If people have not had that ability to have grandpa's house, to come all the way back, they can't connect in with what they know. They can't know inherently life is certain, it is safe, if they've never touched that place. That was my experience. So all I had was the hypervigilance to keep going. And whenever I would have some downtime on a weekend, that would cause terror. When's it going to happen next? So I would just keep working and working. And if I wasn't going to work, I was going to work out. If I wasn't going to work out, I was going to meditate. If I wasn't going to meditate, I was going to listen to a podcast. I would not stop, because if I stopped, terror would ensue. So I personally, my autonomic nervous system needed to have it reset into secure attachment within myself so that I could find that place within. My heart was open. I'm very connected to the divine, but my gut, my hips, my intuition hadn't come fully back online until I did this work, so I could feel that sense of safety and certainty in my soul, in my hips.
And what happens after people do this work? I mean, the story I'm telling myself is that after they do this work, they're more open. There's a renewal probably of themselves and the relationship. The question though that I have is I think about this, and I'm not trying to punch holes in what you do. I think it's a real realistic question.
No, it's all good.
You know how you come back from a conference and you're like, oh my God, everything's going to be different. Everything's awesome. Like this, but it's difficult, what I find, for most people to sustain that.
100%.
And so with this type of work, and especially since there's 2 people in every relationship, how do you sustain this over time and keep that level of vulnerability, authenticity, connection, intimacy, the whole 9 yards?
Yeah. Again, back to the iceberg analogy. If you're not in your body and you're only dealing with the tippy top of the iceberg, it's going to take a lot to keep the raw going, because you have to think it. You have to keep having a positive mindset. You have to keep working at it. You have to work at your beliefs. You have to work, right? That's hard and that's exhausting. When you have integrated the big iceberg underneath the water and your being is at rest, it's quiet in there. It's one with your truth and your soul. It's connected to your intuition, your instincts, your knowing. You don't have to try. You just are. I don't know if you've ever had the experience of being in the zone when you're playing sports. You don't go, I have to try to think about this. Like you're embodied. You're one. You're in your body. You're not dissociating. So when people have never been in their body much, and they've never touched that place of knowing and being in the zone, when they first are able to get in there, it's like, oh my God, it's not as hard as I thought. So that's part one. Part two is I always work with people for a year, and the community is huge. So we do these immersions where we do the psychedelic somatic integration. We also do a retreat once a year. We also do private calls. We also do weekly group calls. There is a community, and there are assignments. There are dyad assignments. So we sprinkle all of the pieces to the puzzle, to the soup, that make it last. And that's the secret sauce. You're not going to have one weekend and have this work. You're not even going to have 3 weekends and have this work. The community where everyone's going through it together, it's like they build on one another. And then you start to see the successes where the marriage is the strongest it's ever been. Or you see the single person who's just never had success finally find a healthy partnership. Someone who's never been able to be in their body and be orgasmic and surrender and have pleasure. It's just, let's just get her done and get on with it. They're able to have pleasure because they are safe in their body and they can open. There's a lot of couples that come to me where one of the person has been through sexual trauma and they've given up on sex ever being nourishing. And I'm not talking just about the sexual act. I'm talking about all the touch, all the pleasure, all the safety, all the intimacy, all the ways of just touching in the kitchen throughout the day and jumping into your arms and putting her legs around you and having your son do the picture. Like these moments all add up, but not when you're not safe in your body, not when you're ashamed that you can't orgasm, not when you check out during lovemaking. So it can be very, very beautiful for couples who are committed to sacred sexuality and beautiful communicative intimacy that have hit ceilings. It's beautiful for them as well. So yeah, it's not a one and done. You need to still do the work. But when the work works so well and you're in a community that keeps ascending, it's pretty delicious.
Pretty delicious.
Delicious. It is. I think it's delicious.
Every time I see you, I think of that word. And the reason is because I hear you use it all the time. Yeah. So yeah, I'm always like, oh, it's Allana, delicious. Delicious. Everything's delicious. So
I don't want to go through life mediocre or like not tasty. No. Yeah.
You know what? I love that. I love that because life is too short to go through mediocre, to go through like this. Yeah, it's okay. Man, no, I didn't sign up. No one signs up for okay.
No.
People sign up for extraordinary. That's what they sign up for.
Yeah.
But I think the gap is you're dealing with 2 different individuals, 2 different life experiences, trauma, trying to also navigate parenthood, trying to navigate marriage, trying to navigate an intimate relationship. It's difficult. So it's relieving to know that this is more of a practice and not just a one and done.
Oh yeah. I want to say one thing, if I may, as well. Yeah. There's a very high level of male suicide in this world right now. Level 3 is suicidal. I've gone through this protocol. As I was integrating that place, I had never been suicidal, Larry, in my whole life. I would never get back in my body enough to feel that. I just kept disassociating and working my ass off, trying to figure out what was going on in my little baby mind. When I went through that phase, it was ugly. And my practitioner was with me every breath as I went through that weekend. And I got through on the other side to a place where that has never occurred again. So if there's even one life that is going to listen to that podcast and he mostly because the dads will be listening on your podcast, or she, but mostly if he just can't seem to shake this suicidal thing, and he drinks, or he works himself to death, or he operates on top of this, but there's a hollowness in his eyes because he can't get through it. I'd like him to consider that this is what's going on with his autonomic nervous system. I'm not a doctor, and so let's just say that, but I've watched enough men go through this that they can get through what feels like there's no point. But if you can feel it long enough through this protocol, all the way through, on the other side, you're going to have to feel something not so fun for a short period of time. A rage you never let yourself feel. A sorrow you never let yourself feel. A panic you never let yourself feel. But when we get back, I have watched aliveness be in men where they're just not allowed to feel in society. They just push it away, stuff it away, and operate on top. And it need not be like that. It's such a heavy burden to carry. And if we could set just somebody free, it would make me really be grateful that we went so deep on this conversation.
Same here. So for men who want to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
On my site. It's all renewed. You can have a look on it. AllanaPratt.com. And you can sign up for an intimacy breakthrough experience call with me. And I'll be sure to give a scholarship to your listeners so they can have a call with me. Yeah.
It's really kind of you. Thank you for doing that.
Oh, it's a life. It's a family. It's a marriage. It's important work.
So, and now I truly understand. Okay. So I'm looking at your site as we speak, which by the way, your site is incredible.
Thanks.
And now I truly understand why all these photos were taken that I see on your Instagram. So I'm like, oh, there they are. Look at that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm a renewed woman. I am grateful. Yeah. The refreshed version, the 54-year-old version.
I can see that look in your eye. Like I really can. And knowing you for as long as I have, because I think I've known you since 2018.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
6 years.
Yeah, that's about right.
So yeah, because you and I went through
exchange,
our exchange, our coaching for appreciative inquiry.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And well, guys, not to worry. We're going to have the links in the show notes for you if you go to thedadedge.com/470 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/470. And by the way, thank you for the scholarship. That's it's incredibly kind of you. It's always really refreshing to me to see that there are people that bring on the podcast that will do something in service of our audience, you know, or do something special for them. So I appreciate you doing that. You don't have to do those things, but I appreciate you doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, you've shown up at my retreat, remember in Arizona? And you are a generous man. You blew everyone away. I'm always grateful to you. And we vibe at a similar level of heart and soul and integrity and willingness to take ownership and commitment to thriving relationships and family. So it is my honor and pleasure. And there's one other gift I wanted to give as well. I believe you're going to be airing this in April. There's another, you'll see on my site there, Become the One intro program. I want to also give all of your listeners a chance to have that complimentary as well, to get a taste of the work I do. Because this isn't just, let's just buy a new roof. Like this is deep stuff. This is about going into feelings, and it's scary, and it's the unknown. And so I want people to have as much of a taste of who I am, should they want to connect with me, before they connect with me, so they feel in resonance and aligned. So, and of course, it's just going to make a big difference in everyone's life as well, but mainly so that people know that I'm the real thing.
That is so cool. Well, thank you very much for doing that. Like I said, I know you're high in demand. I mean, you've been featured in People, Forbes, CBS, Fox, the Huffington Post, TLC, iHeartRadio, all kinds of different platforms. So for you to do this for our audience, man, I really appreciate it, Allana. Thank you.
Thank you, love. And we have a docuseries in the mix as well.
Ooh,
it's coming. Yeah. So we're
what?
Yeah.
Maybe on Netflix? Netflix?
Well, we haven't had a yes yet, but we're in the pitching and all the rest of it. So yeah. Thank you.
That's great.
Things are going really well.
Yeah. Hey, if they can do Super Size Me, or if they can do You Are What You Eat and all this other stuff, you can definitely do, intimate relationships and how to repair those, because the world needs that. So gentlemen, like I said, head on over to thedadedge.com/470 for this show if you want to connect with Allana and her amazing generosity. Allana, thank you so much for coming on today. This was awesome. Thanks for sharing your knowledge with us.
As always, such a pleasure and honor. All my love to you and the fam.
Like I said, guys, head on over to thedadedge.com/470 for this show. Connect with Allana. She is truly amazing. Allana, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Larry. Love you.
Love you back.